All right. Good evening, everybody. How are you? Did you get plenty to eat? Good. That was our plan. You would eat plenty to be tired, and this would go quickly, right? So anyway, I hope you got plenty of food. About 6 or 7 of us cooked that for you tonight. We spent a lot of time on it, so uh, it was not me. I was just running stuff back and forth. So I was the gopher. Uh, we did not. That is for sure. So, we're going to start with prayer. We'll pray and then we'll kind of get started. If you've not been to one of our forwards, which this is only the second one, so if you missed the first one, I'll kind of explain the purpose of it, give you a little bit of the format, and then we'll get into it. And we're going to, I'm not a big believer in staying longer than we have to. So we'll get to everything we need to get to. You'll have some time to ask some questions if you have any. You'll hear from all of our directors, all of the people who lead ministries on staff here as well. I'll intro them so you'll have a sense if you don't know who they are, so you'll have a sense of who they are as well. But thank you guys for coming out. I know Sunday night is hard to turn around, right? It's hard to once you're at home to get back out and come, and so I do very much appreciate that you guys made this a priority and you're here tonight. So we want to make the best use of your time. All right. Well, let's pray and we'll get moving then. Father, thank you for this evening. Thank you for your grace and your mercy that is constantly being revealed and renewed to us. And Father, we just pray tonight. We thank you for what you're doing here amongst your church at SCF. God, we are eternally grateful for what this church has meant to this community, what it continues to mean, and looking forward what it will mean. And we want it just to be fixed and focused on you being glorified, for people finding hope and transform lives through you. And so, Father, as we gather to talk tonight and just to dream together, would you just help us to be sensitive to the leading and the voice of your Spirit? May our hearts and our minds and our spirits be fixed and focused on you in all things. And in all of this, may you be glorified. We thank you for this night. Thank you for this opportunity. Lord, it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. So we started this last fall, and our plan is to do this twice a year. And so I come from a denomination where every year we had to have an annual business meeting, and those were awful. Right? I've never seen people fight so much in a church as when they're talking about money. And so that is not really what this is. We are certainly going to have some updates on finances, all that kind of stuff. You're more than welcome to ask questions surrounding that. But at the end of the day, we want it to be more than just talking about numbers. We really want it to be a night where we dream together about what God is doing and what he wants to do through us together. And so it's really fixed and focused on that. And so we're going to try to kind of guide you through that this evening. And so we last did this in November. So it's been, 7 months or so? I'm from the South. My math's bad. About 7 months or so, right? And so there's been a lot that's changed, a lot that has remained the same in that time. The last forward we talked a little bit about our finances, and John's going to come and talk a little bit more in depth about that. But we had to make a hard decision after the first year. We had to lay off 2 staff members in February, which was an incredibly hard thing for us to do. But we felt like it was the right thing to do, and we've seen God's grace in that. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But I think it has put us in a position where we are much more healthy financially and in terms of even beyond that moving forward. And as hard as it is to do that, that was part of the last 6 or 7 months. And so that was a big thing for us as well. The last 3 or 4 months, we've really watched sometimes it's hard to see on Sundays, but we've really watched a lot of new families showing up on Sundays the last 2 or 3 months. We're excited about what we're seeing with families with kids showing up, families with teenagers, and families who are empty nesters as well, right? So we're starting to see families come in the door again, which is exciting. And so I'm a huge believer that our best days are in front of us. I believe that with all of my heart, or I wouldn't be here, to be honest with you. And so, we talk about this all the time amongst our staff, that we are invested in playing the long game. Not doing things for short-term return, but really understanding, man, that this is not my church, this is not our church, this is Jesus' church. And he's going to do the work. All we have to do is follow him. And so what does it look like to follow him? What does it not look like to look at every other organization around and go, what are they doing that's going well? But really trying to figure out uniquely, who do we want to be as SCF? not to look like anybody else, but to look more and more like Jesus. And so I'm convinced that sometimes that means saying no to things so that you can say yes to better things. And so we'll talk about some of those no's and yeses as well. So some of you guys sent in some questions. If you did not send in questions, we should have some time to get to some other questions if you weren't able to send those in as well. But we're going to start tonight by having kind of all or several of our staff come. And first of all, I want to introduce them to you. If you don't know them, it's a good way to get to know who they are. I'll give you a little description of what they do here. Not a full description because most of them wear several hats, but I'll give you a general sense of what they do, and they're going to give just kind of an update from their kind of from the areas that they lead. So first is going to be John Klippenstein, who is fresh off a 3-week trip to Europe. Does it sound like I know? SEF, we own this entire plaza. And so John oversees all of that as well. He is a busy guy. He does a lot. We would be in a lot of hurt without John. And so I'm thankful for him, and he should be well recuperated to come and talk to us. I know he hasn't thought about this in 3 weeks, so at all, as he should not. So anyway, would you guys give him a hand as he comes up? John Klippenstein.
Thanks, Jake. It's on? Okay, sorry. Yeah, 3 weeks gone, got back Friday night, so jet lag didn't hit me yet. I hope it doesn't during this talk, at least. So anyway, so I'm going to give you a kind of a snapshot. Jason mentioned the layoffs we had to do in January and February. Anytime, I'm assuming a lot of you out there have gone through times like that in your life or in businesses where they've laid off people, and one of my roles is to really watch how staff reacts to that. And our staff that we have reacted fantastically. We had to step up into different areas. Each of us has taken a little bit more on. It depends on what role. And it was sad to have 2 of our full-time staff members leave, of course. But the staff that we have now has stepped up really big. So currently we have 13 staff members, 3 part-time and 10 full-time. Just a year ago, we had 4 full-time more people than that. So we had 2 staff members leave last year on their own. So we've really cut back staff. After that happened with the layoffs this year, we're at a staff size now that we could bring all staff down to one area. This is the first time in my 13 years here we had all staff can work in one area. So that was big. We had to build one office. We built the office. Lee and his great crew built an office. So now we have all of staff in one area. That really helps. I know Sarah and Mike were upstairs, and now they're downstairs with everybody else, and it just really adds something to staff when they're all in one area. You can hear people talk. You can get to know them better and stuff. So it was really good on that part. Related to that, we have a set of suite of offices upstairs that we weren't going to be using. So Anna Cribb reached out to some of our local partners if they needed office space, and the Food Bank of Northern Nevada said yes, they needed office space. So we are renting them space at a very cheap rate for them, which is great, but they're one of our partners anyway. So they started, I think, 2 months ago now. So we're getting income from that, which is helping us also. So that space is being used just by another nonprofit, which is one of our goals here in the building, is to use our building as much as humanly possible, and we do a pretty good job at that. And we also have a co-op school that's started renting from us, I think, in January. So we're going to get a little bit of money from both of those organizations over the next year to the tune of about $14,000, which in our new budget I'm allocating directly to our power bill, which I'm sure all of you know power has not been cheap. So we spend about an average of $3,800 a month for our power bill, 12 months a year average. So that $14,000 is going to help us out a lot. So that's kind of the effect of the layoffs and what we did since then. And then go ahead, Mike, put that slide up. So we've got some numbers up here. So let me try to go over them. So our fiscal year is July through June here. So this is the 11th month of the fiscal year. So you can see our actual giving is 1.219. Our budget's 1.201. So obviously we're ahead of budget, which is great. Yeah. To the tune of about $15,000. Our expenses actual is 1.207, so it's still under our actual giving. It's a little bit over our budgeted, but we're still $800 in the black. So that's great news, and that's a lot to do with the lowering of our staff costs and doing other things to get that number low. So it's a turnaround where we were even 4 or 5 months ago. We were behind. Making those layoffs helped us save on staff costs. So like Jason said, I think our best years are ahead, our best time. We're in a very good spot right now financially. And I put our projected budget for the next year coming up as right about $1.3 million. I don't have the exact number yet. I have to have it in about 10 days because Jason and I have to give it to the Board of Elders on the 14th. So this week is my goal is to fine-tune that number. So I'm confident that every year when I do the budget, it's kind of hard in a church trying to budget what you think income's coming in. It's not like a business, you can get more customers. So it's part of history and then it's part on faith. And so I have to put some faith budget in there. And sometimes the faith works and sometimes God has other plans. So I feel real confident that 1.3 is a very reachable number. So I'm looking forward to the next year and hitting that number and not being in the red right away. Summer is usually our lowest giving time. People are gone. Those of us that don't, some of you don't do giving online regularly, if you write a check still and stuff, which is great. So sometimes summer is a little rough. Start of our budget year is always a little rough. July through August is a little rough at times. And it's always in the red then it picks up in the fall. Then Christmas, December is always our best month. Always our best month. So anyway, so that all looks good. Our mall side, like Jason mentioned, we own this mall. It's full tenancy. Everybody's paying full rent. Nobody's behind. So that is just God supplying for us income for us. So and this in the last 6 or 8 months or so, the mall has been paying our whole mortgage bill. Usually we pay a part. I added that burden to the mall side, and they could do it. As soon as our new budget starts, SCF will start paying some of the mortgage again, which is good. So we had the money on the mall that we could use when we needed it. Now we don't need it, and we can start paying some of the mortgage again on that. And in our new budget, trying to, I look at every line item all the time. How can we save? And there's only probably 20 line items, maybe above $10,000 a year. And then, of course, staff is the number one cost. Our second cost is healthcare costs. And I think everybody knows we were going to get a 20% increase on our healthcare costs. So we decided this year to switch to another broker, and we're going to only have to increase it by 5%, and which helps. All these little things help. So, and the staff here, the culture here is just spend what you need. It's not go out and spend because I might need it. Sometimes I have to tell them, go ahead and go do that. It's okay to spend some more money. So, which is good. So, and I just want to end on a little bit on the attendance number. I saw a question about on attendance on Sundays. For the first 5 months this year, we've averaged about 480 people on Sundays. That includes in-person, online, youth, and volunteers. Okay, 480. Last year, same time frame, about 450. So it's about a 7% increase from last year, which is great. I mean, which is good. I don't think you're going to see churches growing 20, 30% anymore every year. But if we could grow 7% year after year, that's a good growth. and I think that would be a great goal for us. So, doing questions now or at the end? Doing them at the end. Okay. Okay. Wait for questions.
Actually, we can do questions now.
Yeah.
If you have questions about finances or anything from John, hey, let me give you just kind of an overview of how, because if you've never worked at a church, there are some unique financial methodologies with churches. So the average church in America spends somewhere between 75 and 80% of their entire income generally on building and staff. Right? So that's about 7 or 8 out of 10 out of every dollar that comes in goes either to the staff working at the church or the building itself. How many of you that's surprising? That sounds like way more than it should be. I agree with you, right? So one of the things we recognized even 4 or 5 years ago before we went through COVID and we saw our attendance go down and all those things is we knew that staff-wise we were carrying too many people, right? We were just out of sorts in terms of like our numbers. And so the last year and a half, 2 years, not only those 2 layoffs, but we had 2 people who transitioned to new jobs. And it was really, I think, God's way of kind of getting us to a place where we were more healthy, right? And we had to make some hard decisions, but I think that was part of it. One of the things, and this is where I was going to go with this, one of the things that I'm most proud of, I think, between our elders and our staff is through all of these things, these challenges financially, we've never reduced giving to any of our missionaries or our local partners. Most churches, I can tell you, I know this. Most churches, the first thing they do is they cut missionaries and they cut money that they're giving to locally. That's how they save. I'm tremendously proud that we made the decision as a church that, listen, we're not going to cut the people that we've pledged to support. And so I say thank you to all of you on that. Like that's a huge thing that you may not understand, but it's something that to me, when churches do it, I immediately go, yeah, I don't like that. And so the hard decisions we've made, I think, have been, man, God has guided them. And I'm tremendously proud of the fact that as a church, we've decided that it matters more who we give out to than what we give inside in some ways. That's a tremendous thing to me. And so thank you guys for your faithfulness in that. Any questions? Tammy? We have a quota of 1.
I was going to say that. Thank you.
Now it's 3 questions. No, I'm just
Digging a hole.
I'm not sure that I like you and Steve sitting next to each other, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like,
whatever 1.3 million divided by 52 times 4.3 or whatever. Probably 27,000 a week, somewhere in there. I don't know. Somebody's got a calculator out there. Yeah. Was not, and I will look into that. Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
no more vacations for John.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks, Tammy. Thanks. I really appreciate it.
No, it's a good point. Thank you. I hadn't thought of that either. So that's a great point. I saw some other hands. Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Okay.
Sure. It was not 3,000, I can tell you that.
Okay. Okay. We owe right about 3.1 million, just under that, probably closer to 3-ish now. So we've had it since we bought the mall in 2002, 2001, sorry. Did a big renovation, so through that, we financed about $7 million. I wasn't on staff at the time, and so we've carried it since then. So, we've paid a lot of interest money, obviously, over the years, just like we do with our houses. But we have a pretty good interest rate now. I think it's 4.25%. And commercially, we have to renew our loan. We have to redo it every 5 years. We just can't hang on to that. And whatever the rates are in that 5th year is what you get. So it's just one of those things. It's too bad. It's not like my own house now. I got a really low interest rate forever. I wish I could do that here and save a bunch of interest money, because our mortgage payment is $29,000 a month. Okay. And the mall will pay about $20,000 of that, and we're going to pay the $9,000 or $10,000 roughly again. So that's how. And on the mall side, they can do that, and that's if you're a landlord, you want your tenants paying your mortgage for your house, and we were doing that for a while in the mall, but we need to build up some of the mall funds coming up for the next year probably. So great question. I don't know about the 3,000. I probably did a math error. So, okay, thank you.
Is that an Apple or Samsung? No, just there you go. There you go.
Hey, Doug. Why is it important that we build up the mall fund? It's always good to have money in the mall fund for those expenses. This is the first mall built in Sparks in the early 1960s. So these buildings are old. And sometimes we need new pavement. We did the pavement 3 or 4 years ago now to the tune of about $600,000. So we need money on the mall side, so we have money there just for those things to improve the mall, paint the mall when it needs to, roofing issues, paving, striping, all those things. So that's the main reason. Wallace? Yes.
Yes.
It's ridiculous, yeah. And that's about $40,000 just in those fees every time we do that.
That's what I was trying to understand, the way you were saying.
Yeah.
In 5 years, what the interest rate is if that one mortgage company
Yeah.
moved you into that without.
Yeah.
And there aren't a lot of finance companies that like to deal with churches, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
They don't. Like, it's a pretty limited
Yeah.
number of national or large reputable financial services companies that deal with churches. So,
Yeah.
So you're pretty much, in some ways, absolutely.
Yeah. And we deal with a Christian credit union out of Southern Cal. We had here for forever, and I've tried to shop the mortgage at times, and it just the banks want to see with our mall and the church is we're a unique client, because the mall's got income, the church has income, and so it's more difficult when you go like the Bank of the West or Wells Fargo. They have pretty set guidelines on what they want to see financially before they'll loan you money. So we've stuck with the same bank. There are times when I wanted to go away from them, but at the end, they had the best rates for us. And 1 or 2% on $3.1 million adds up.
Well, and I can tell you guys, people who study these things, right, the life cycle of a church is it grows large, they hire a lot of people, they build a lot of buildings, they go way in debt, and then they have to support that debt. And so the mission of the church largely becomes paying for what they built and who they employ, and it's predictable. It's a bell curve. The average life of a church is about 25 years. They peak at about 12 or 13, and then on the back end, they're just trying to survive. So I'm a huge believer in not building big buildings. Like, now we have a building, so we have to deal with that, right? But it's also the healthiest churches, right, are not the ones that have the most employees, right? Because here's what happens when you hire a bunch of people, then people stop volunteering because they think, oh, they get paid to do this, right? And so I actually think it's a really healthy correction. I think there are a lot of churches right now spending a lot of money on buildings, and in 10 years, just watch. I just tell you, it's predictable. Everybody thinks they're the outlier. We're doing it like nobody else did it. All right, I'll see you in 10 years, right? Because you're going to be paying a $12, $15 million mortgage. You know how many people you have to get up and show every Sunday to pay that kind of mortgage? Right, so it changes the dynamics, man, entirely. And so I'm thankful. You know, John talked a little bit about this. Some of you in this room understand this, but the health of this mall right now, if you had predicted this 6 or 7 years ago, it would have been hard to imagine that we are at a place health-wise with our tenants and everybody paying on time. The lawn, I'll just say this, the dry cleaner, who is now right across the road, who is here, they jumped owing $90,000. They were in arrears $90,000. Do you know how long it takes to get in arrears $90,000 in a space that size? Right? So John and then Jason Evanchek, who is a part of our management company that we use, man, they've done some diligent work the last 5 years to get us in a position in our tenancy to really be healthy in a way that it helps the church and is not a drag, is not an anchor. And so they deserve a ton of credit and a lot of board members, elders who dealt with that for a long time. So there's a lot of people who deserve some real credit to get us to this space, honestly. Anybody else? Ryan, what's up? Yep. Yep. No, we don't own that part. So it ends. We end at the welfare services office. So everything this side of that is SCF owns. Everything moving that way is owned by another developer. So I have heard they're putting in a coffee shop at the Subway though. That's what I heard. So don't quote me on that, but I did hear it. So
we don't own the gas station site. Yeah.
yeah. We do not own the gas station either.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank goodness.
But I do encourage you to do business with
Yes.
them, right? Because
Yes,
they're very nice
please.
people,
Yes,
and
they are
they've been
good
great.
people.
So, yes, ma'am.
Zero. Everything's full.
We're full.
We're full.
Yep.
Yeah, we are full,
And they're all on time right now,
Yeah.
which is even a bigger miracle.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, go to Shelley's.
Go to Shelley's. You
Go
might-
to the liquor store. No.
Go to the vape
if you
store.
go, I will not tell anybody. All right. It's funny. I've literally been walking out of my car and seen people that I know coming from the liquor store, and they don't look at me as they're going by. I'm like, I still know who you are. Like, Dwayne, I saw you.
Yeah.
Like,
Only once. Yeah. This week.
anybody else have questions for John and John's domain? Chuck. That's a good question.
Man, the last time we had to do evaluation, I think it's valued between 6 and 7 million. I mean, so, we all think, wow, you got 3 million in equity sitting in the mall, and we do. But again, you go sell the mall, try to find something like this in this town for the same price, blah blah blah. Just like trying to buy a house right now, if you're going to spend it all. So, to be honest, that was thought of a few years back. Selling the mall, selling church, and doing something different, but the board at the time made the decision that we're going to stay here, and it was the right choice, without a doubt.
Yep, absolutely.
Linda. It's gone up or down. One time it was valued at 12, but it's, property, commercial property. And we're, like I said, we're the oldest mall in Sparks. We're what's known as probably a Class C mall, not a Class A. Where we're located, what it looks like compared to even the Rayleighs across the street or up the street or something like that. So, so it's been valued high just like houses. It goes up and goes down. And I don't know, it might be worth more than 7 right now. I don't know. And right now we have no reason to go find out because that costs about $2,000 to $5,000 to get that done. So, which if we don't need it, don't need to spend the money on it. Yeah.
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 That's to you guys. You guys have done that.
That's
So,
not, yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. The remodels win. Yes, that was wrapped in.
I think the total was like 7.1.
Yeah, we bought them all for $5 million, if I remember right. The number. Some of you guys been here forever probably know that number. Steve probably knows the top of his head. And then I think we put another $2 million in upgrades or through this renovation, and so they had to roll the construction loan over and stuff. Yeah.
Anything else for John? Thank you, sir. All right. Next, I think a lot of you know. Some of you might not know, but now you will. Is our next gen pastor. So Don Mattioni oversees both our youth department, so our student ministries department, as well as working with Sally on the kids side. Sally, wave at everybody from the back. Right. So Sally, who does all of our kids and is doing a phenomenal job right now, and Don, who's jumped right in, doing a great job with students. So, Don, the floor is yours, sir.
Good evening. How are you guys? I always hate this light right here. It feels like when you're standing on stage, I don't know how Jason does it. You can't even see you guys. So he really is looking at you on Sunday when he's preaching. I'm going off of what I did at the First Forward. So what's been going on? So I talked a little bit at the First Forward. I started May 1st, so I just actually hit a year working here May 1st. And one of the things that I wanted to do when I came in was, if you know me really well, it may look like, what's this dude doing? Because I watch a lot of things, I pay attention to a lot of things, and so I came in with kind of that mentality, like, hey, I'm gonna assess here what I see. Through nothing was told to me like bad things were happening. It was just I wanted to look at it, and also create some consistency within the youth and within. Not that wasn't there either. It was just something. These were my individual goals. So I would say I have accomplished that. These kids know who I am. They know my heart. They know my passion. I'm a very passionate young man. And like I shared last time, I want them to know Jesus so bad. And I actually mess with them sometimes. Do you think my job is to get you to know Jesus? And they're like, yes. I'm like, no, it's not. You think it is, but I view it in a different light. There's a lot of information out there in the world. They have the information, our youth, our young adults, right at their fingertips. It's more so my job, and I'll give a little testament to Jason here. I watch him and how he operates, the information that he consumes and then discerns. That kind of sparked a passion in me, and so I actually view what I do as I'm trying to help these kids and these young adults discern the information that they're getting out there. So that has been kind of the approach that I've taken towards the youth. If there's anybody that's a skeptic towards Christianity in the room, it's them. So we've kind of been working hard on what they see, what they learn, what they're getting taught in school. We've been kind of hitting evolution hard lately, and just my job is trying to get them to be curious. I'm trying to get them to think. For some reason, what I've assessed over the last year is that they're under a ton of pressure, and I kind of am a big believer, and there's a Luke Bryan country song that kids should stay kids as long as they can. I have a couple theories why, and my heart doesn't come from an ill intent. I think it's what's modeled from their parents. I think it's what they see in the world from adults. And like I said, if there's anybody that's a skeptic in the room, it's them. So just really trying to help them discern that and what they see and what they're reading and what they're hearing and what they're watching. And that kind of leads me into something that we started. We just had the first night of it. It was the SCF Family Partnerships. And I'm super excited about this. It's been something that us as the director level have been talking about for a while. How can we, as the church, the way we should, be able to help resource parents and the people in the congregation? We had a mental health seminar. It was not to diagnose children. We had a guy, Jake Whiskerton, come in, and he talked about how parents have to be able to handle their emotions so that they can teach their kids how to handle their emotions. I'm a big believer right now, adults, and I'm one of them. It's something I got to work on. We don't know how to handle our emotions. And so that was a great night. That was our first kickoff event. We have another one coming in August 20th. We have a lady coming in that works for Awaken. No, she's not specifically going to talk about women sex trafficked. She will broach that, but she's really going to talk about there's a lot of back doors with these apps and social media that these kids are on. One for being Snapchat, it knows your GPS. So when a girl sends a snap, there's a predator guy out there, he knows exactly where she's at. And so it's just another tool to help resource the parents. Because you have to make a choice as a parent. Do I get my kid the phone? Do I not get my kid the phone? Do they have FOMO of not having the phone? All this stuff. It's just one of those things, like I said, I'm excited about that. We're trying to help resource parents. I'm a parent. I'm trying to sit there myself with my notes and try not to freak out. It's just what we're going through today. And so I'm excited about that because I feel like through that, we're building relationships and we're building partnerships with families. And that is one of the things I think I see. It's not every family. This doesn't come from an ill heart as well. If you know me, I say that way too much. It's just my assessing is I really think Jason kind of talked about we're seeing a lot of new families, which is great. Our kids are growing up in an individualistic society. That's what social media does to them, instant gratification. I was talking to a mom actually in the cafe the other night, and I told her she was telling me some struggles that she's having, and I said, hey, think about this, and I'm not doing this to shame you, know that. I said, if I had a kid and he's struggling in sports, I played sports my whole life, I played baseball. If I was struggling hitting in baseball, what are my parents going to do? They're going to get me a hitting coach. They're going to tell me to go get in the pen and work and grind through it to get out of your slump. If they're struggling in school, what are you going to do? You're going to get them a tutor, right? And this is the kicker for me was if they don't want to go to school, I don't have any friends at school, are you going to tell them, okay, you don't have to go to school? No, you're going to tell them to go to school. Some of the things that I see that I've witnessed is, oh, my kid doesn't want to go to youth group because he feels like he doesn't have any friends, so they tell him they can't go. To me, I look at that and go, that's the eternal thing. The other stuff is earthly. Of course, they need good grades. Of course, they want to be good at sports. And that has I don't say that in any reflection like we're hurting for numbers. I've seen the numbers grow. It's been an amazing thing because I think we're being consistent and diligent and intentional with our students. I think that's just, we as parents can breed into that individualistic mindset. And so some of the things that we're working through, we're trying to create we've done it, I think, a safe place where they can feel valued and loved and heard, ask questions, be curious. And we've seen that kind of blossom a little bit where they're like, I don't get this. I just get told what to do. I have all this pressure and I get told what to do. So, the SCF Family Partnership, we have youth camp coming up. It's going to be a little bit different than this year, and I'm happy for it because it's really just going to be a continuation of what we're doing. We want to spend time with them. We want to be in relationship with them, and we get to enjoy beautiful Lake Tahoe while we're doing it. That's all I really have. I think that's what has been happening and what's been going on. So,
Cool. Any questions for Don? Or me and Don? Yes, sir. Sure. Yep. Awesome.
we love having her.
And I'll tell you guys, like Don and I have talked a lot even before we started working here. I spent 10 years doing youth ministry, large youth groups at times, big ones, right? But what I found was just getting kids in the door is really, really easy. Like you buy enough food, you give away Xboxes. Like it doesn't take a genius to get kids to show up if you're giving them stuff all the time. The problem with that is it doesn't keep anybody. It just doesn't. And so Don and I, we've had long conversations about this idea that, again, it's a long game. Because our goal is not to just get kids to show up. Our goal is to mature kids to be adults who follow Jesus, right? And so at the end of the day, that looks different than just getting somebody to show up on a Wednesday. And so I promise you, nobody's better relationally with kids than Don is. If your kids are looking for a place to connect and belong, it's a bit of a risk always to show up. But I'm convinced that showing up matters, and so man, we're thankful to have Don. He's doing a great job. As is Sally. Sally's doing a phenomenal job. Has stepped into that void and is doing incredible. So, thank you guys.
I forgot one thing. I told Sally I would mention it, and I forgot. Sorry, Sally. This is why you need to come up here and speak. With the turnaround we've seen new families, and that's a great thing. It's always a challenge on Sunday because you're so limited on time. You want to meet them, you want to talk to them, you want to get to know them, and you don't want to then overload them, or they're like, well, okay, this dude's weird. I don't want to talk to him. He's way too personal. We've had some volunteers that have worked in the kids ministry for a very long time. Sally, very generously, in her spirit of who she is, sat down with them and said, hey, do you want to keep doing this? Because you've done this for 30 years. Do you actually enjoy these kids? And it was funny. She had a couple of them say, well, yeah, but I don't know if I just kind of kept doing it because it's what I did. And so we've had some other people show up and volunteer. I just posed the question out there. If you feel like you want to serve with the children on Sunday mornings, or you may know somebody that, hey, that person really loves children, come talk to me and Sally, because we'd always welcome new volunteers. And the last thing was, I think it's a testament, was 8 of my volunteers in the youth grew up in the youth. They're now pouring back into the youth. That's what I view as a huge win. I think when I started there was 4, and now we have 8. So they're younger than me, they're more relatable than me, and I'm not old, I'm only 33, but they're younger than that, and they can help them discern this information that I was talking about as well. So
cool. Hey, so when you go to sign up to work with kids, after we're done tonight, you're going to stop by and do that. You do have to fill out a long application, just so you know. Like, we background everybody there. Like, we have really re-engaged in that heavily the last 6 months, just to make sure that when kids are here, they're safe as much as we can control that. So if you go and they ask you to fill out a lot of stuff, I don't apologize at all. All right. I wish you had to fill out more, to be honest with you, but it's just enough. So Don's doing a great job, as is Sally. Thank those guys. So next, I don't know how it organized around, like, guys first, ladies last. I didn't organize this tonight, so it's not me who did this. But anyway, we'll get to some of the ladies who are on staff with us. First of all is Sarah Pierman, who is our connections pastor. And so she handles all of our weekend experience stuff. So Sunday morning, everything that happens. Sarah is responsible for that. She handles our online digital presences. So all of our online stuff, whether it's social media or our live streaming, she's in charge of all of that. All of our teams on Sundays, so the coffee team, the ushers, worship, all those things are under her purview, and she does a great job as well. So will you guys give her a hand as she comes up?
All right. So I'm going to start off by talking about some of those volunteer teams that Jason just mentioned. In the past 3 months, we've had 9 new volunteers in the Welcome Ministry, and that includes coffee greeters, front door greeters, and ushers. It's interesting to see a correlation between higher attendance here in the building and people joining serve teams. That's where I was like, oh, that's really neat. And then I started looking at the people that were signing up, and I'm like, they've actually been here a while. But I think it's a win. I think it's really neat to see these people, and you're like, man, okay, they're connected in a community group, and they're attending on a Sunday, and now they're joining a serve team. That's a sign of engagement, that they're taking that next step. And so that's really neat to see that increase in engagement. Last time at Forward, so last November, we were talking about the new app that was coming out and what to expect. Well, the app is in full swing now. We have a grasp on it. It's definitely been a learning curve. Mason was one of the people that we had to lay off, and he was in charge of all that. And so other staff members had to step up and kind of take that role on. And so it's definitely been a learning curve for us, so thank you for your patience. But we are starting to see less questions and confusion about it, and so I think we're on the right track, and that's on our side too. The SCF app is our primary means of communication moving forward for those that are connected here at SCF. So you'll notice that, kind of our basic information is not on our website anymore. It's all through the app, and that's pretty much all we talk about when we're talking about communication. You do still get the email blast that has stuff on there as well, but the app is our primary communication moving forward for those connected at SCF. So stay up to date on all communication. That includes events, announcements, notifications. The app is going to be your best tool. So how are we reaching those not connected? Glad you asked. We have partnered with a social media company called Missio. We have been with them for just a couple of months, and we've actually had a few weeks of content that they've put out. We're definitely still in the early stages of working with this company, but so far we've been really excited with the content that they have produced. We have seen some increased engagement, and one of the challenges with the aspects of social media is actually getting us, our SCFers, engaged with our own social media. So we actually have a great part for you to play in this, and that is if you don't follow us on social media and you're interested in doing that, I'm never going to force anybody onto social media. That's not my gig. But if you're interested in it, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So that would be your first step. Start following us. If you do already follow us, then the next step is to like, comment, and share the posts. And so what this does is it actually messes with the algorithms, and it actually helps us reach people that aren't connected. And I think that it's really important and interesting with the statistics that are out there, that they're saying that if somebody is looking for a church, they're actually more inclined to look them up on a website and their social media platforms before they enter into the church building. And so that's why we're taking this so seriously. We're trying to reach them. And working with this company, we're trying to have content out there that tells a story really quick, and that story is who we are. And we know that attention spans are really short. And so, you just have a couple of seconds. I don't even know if it's actually a couple of seconds. It's very short to grab someone's attention and tell that story and explain who we are. So if you guys would join in with that and partner with us on our social media, we would greatly appreciate it. All right, and sorry, I smack. My husband told me not to do that when I was on the microphone, so I'm going to try not to do that anymore. As far as worship team goes, we are looking for talented musicians and singers, and so if that is you out there and you have any interest in joining the worship team, I'd love to have a conversation with you and talk to you more about what that process is. In the fall, we're hopeful to have an open audition. So what that means is we take a Sunday after church, and anybody who is interested, they can simply fill out the packet that we give them, which asks some basic questions and kind of a history of, what they sing, what they play, how long have they been coming to SCF, just basic kind of get to know you questions. And then we have the musical audition. And I'm really not that scary. I try to make it a really relaxed environment. So I know it's one of the more nerve-wracking volunteer positions, but we would love to have you. I'd love to get to know you and talk to you more about that process. If you have somebody else you know that's really talented, you might want to give them the nudge of encouragement. And I'd love to have a conversation. You can actually fill out a form on the app if you're interested in doing that as well. So that is all the updates I have for you.
All right. Any questions for Sarah? Tammy? Mm-hmm. If we have to talk in a mic, so do you.
It's not on.
There it is.
Thank you. The social media company that we are now using Two-part question. What's the cost for that?
Sure.
And secondarily, how often are they going to post for us?
So it's $1,200 a month, which is a significant reduction from what it would cost us to pay somebody to do that in-house. And they have a full team. And so our contract is 7 posts per platform per week. The first 3 months, it's actually 8, right? So we actually got a 3-month bump going with them. So they're on 3 platforms: Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And
I did notice.
And the other thing that they're doing is they're also hosting our live stream on Sunday mornings for us. So they give us the opportunity to actually have a chat host on YouTube as well as Facebook. So we've always had a presence on YouTube. We've never had a live chat on YouTube. That is now also available. So they're handling all that for us. And if you've not been on the social media lately, they're doing a really good job. And they what I like about them is it was an extensive process between us and them, that they really wanted to understand who we are. So it's not cookie cutter, it's not boilerplate kind of it. They really are dialing it into who we are, and so we feel like it's a really good value. I know we all complain about people on their phones all the time, but if they're going to be there, we should probably talk to them there a little bit. And so it's we feel like it's been a really good partnership so far. They've done a really good job, and they listen to us. We preview everything before it goes out. So we have a call twice a month where we sit down and look at the upcoming posts that are scheduled, and we really we determine what goes out largely. So and not only do they post, but they also engage with people in the posts, right? So they have people who will engage, and they're really good if they don't understand, or if they don't have an answer for somebody, they'll come to us and we'll get the answer for them. So so it's a pretty full service operation, I think they've done really well so far.
Hello. Hello, daughter. In light of that, same thing with social media and everything, all the attention there, I'm curious how the website's doing, because I know there's been some upgrading to it, but I know it's also been a project. So I'm curious to know, someone that hears about an event in the community or they learn through social media something going on, I think it's still a natural reaction to
Sure.
go to the website and look things up. And in the past, it hasn't been that easy to find things. So can you give us an update on that?
Absolutely. I think what we've done the last couple of years is we've tried to determine, we have these 3 digital platforms: the app, social media, the website. So we don't want to use them all for the same thing, right? So for us, when Sarah talks about the app being our main internal communication vehicle, that's what it is. We want everybody who's part of SCF to utilize the app because it has more information than the rest of it does. For us, the website is not designed for you guys who are already here. It's designed for someone who's looking for the first time. So it's going to have very basic information. It's going to give a sense of who we are as a church, our beliefs, times, all that kind of stuff. But it really is not designed to be a communicator for people who are already here. That's what the app is. And social media, honestly, for us, we look at it the same way. We want to talk to people who are not part of SCF largely through our social media. And so that's why the app matters, is because it's the place that we're going to do most of our internal communication. The other 2 are not really designed for that right now or in the foreseeable future. And we've been pretty strategic about that because you're right. I think, like Sarah said, we know this from studies around this over the last 5 years, that generally 70 or 80% of people, before they ever step foot in a church, will look at the social media, they'll look at the website. So we better design it that way, right? And I think we've tried to be really strategic with that. So I think the website is the best. It's external, but I think it's doing really well for that right now, right? It's doing what it's designed to do. I feel like right now. Yep.
Yeah, some of our inside terminology is internal, external, and so that's kind of how we classified things. So our social media right now is more external, if you're looking at percentage of what we're putting on their content. Our website, we had to make that switch to more external. So you'll see there's a huge presence of support and recovery on our website. There's our live stream teaching and Sunday posts, more stuff like that. You know, you're not going to see a forward invite on our website because that's very internal.
Yeah, so I guess a good way to talk about that may be like the website and social media are kind of a front door, right? Whereas the app is more kind of like in this room, it's in-house, right? And so so if you look at the website and you expect it to have all the information about SCF, it's not going to, but it's not designed to have that, right? It's designed to kind of just give people enough information to make a decision. Do I want to show up here? Do I not? And so, yeah, I think actually the simplicity helps some a little bit, I think. Anybody else? Right.
Hey, Sarah. How you doing? I just wanted to say I do appreciate and love the music that you guys all put every Sunday in the house. I was just curious. Did you actually go to choir classes when you were in school? Because your voice is like an angel.
That's very sweet.
Did you pay Ron? No,
Yes, Ryan, I did grow up singing, so I was involved in a lot of choirs. Yes.
kind of offended you didn't ask me about that, Ron, but no, I'm not at all. All right, anything else for Sarah? Sarah, thank you very much. All right, and so last but certainly not least is our community life pastor. Many of you know. If you don't know her, I'm not sure how you've missed because Whitney talks to everybody so and does a great job with it. So our community life pastor, which handles basically all of our community groups, and many other things beyond that as well, which is a huge part of what we value and do as a church. And so she does a great job with her team, which also includes Anna, and I'm sure Anna's going to talk as well. So would you guys give them both a big hand as they come?
Cool, thank you. Awesome. Well, one thing I wanted to say, just as Sarah was talking about people that have been joining teams, you all are so well connected. I think one of the things, I've been here 6.5 years now, and something that I still say about our church, because I see it, is I don't know if I've ever seen a volunteer base quite like this one. And even just this week, Sally and I, we have some people that we share teams. They're on one of my teams, they're on some of hers. And so we were trying to swap schedules, and there was a moment of just, this is so cool that we have this many people saying, I want to serve on another team, but will it still work with the team I'm already on? And so I want to start off by saying, you are so involved, you are so engaged. Thank you. We so appreciate that. Well, as Jason said, Anna and I work together in community life. We're also missing kind of our third part, who's Janice Grant, but the three of us work very closely together. And when I describe our church, the first thing I always say is we're a community-driven church. And when I say that, I'm talking in two different connotations. We're community-driven in the sense of relationships, that when we talk about having a tight community or when we're part of community, we mean it in terms of we want people to call SCF home, to not just associate it with a service or with a building or with a mall or with a program. We want them to associate it with names and faces, with intentional relationships, that when you see when you talk about your church, you're seeing relationships that you're a part of. So we mean community driven in that sense. We also mean community driven in the sense of we want to be a part of our city. We want our city, we want our zip code, we want our valley to be a better, more hope-filled place because we're a part of it. And so Anna and I will kind of speak to both sides of that connotation in community. And so first, intentional relationships. Whenever I meet somebody, as I do almost every single Sunday down here under this Next Step banner, who is wanting to find out more about our church, what I'm thinking in my head is, okay, how do we get you in a relational environment? Whether that means a serve team, whether that means a community group, whether that means something like Rooted that Roy and Debbie have been faithful to offer for us a couple times a year. Whatever it is, I'm listening and thinking, okay, how can I get you an intentional relationship? Because how can I get you around names and faces? And something that keeps me driven towards that is when I think about my why, I think about Jesus saying, this is how the world will know that you're my disciples. It's by your love for who? What did he say? One another. That's how people are going to know. It's not going to be the stuff you talk about. It's not going to be who you vote for. It's not going to be the things that you ran about on social media. It's not going to be your bumper stickers. It's not going to be the radio station you have plugged in. The world is going to know that you're mine by your love for one another. And so when I think about that, I want people in environments where they can see that. I get to see it in my group all the time. I get sometimes what I call good group guilt, because there are naturally going to be hard things that come up in any community. That is absolutely true. But I get to see so much evidence of, man, if I did not know Christ, I would watch your love for one another, and I would want what you have. I would want those kind of friendships. I would want those kind of relationships. And I was just listening to a podcast this week, and it used this phrase, the loneliness epidemic, talking specifically about Western culture, the loneliness epidemic. That loneliness is so rampant in people's life that it would now reach epidemic status, that a large number of people would describe themselves as lonely. You know where that should never happen? In a church. Does that mean that relationships are going to be easy? No. Fun all the time? No. Hard conversations? Yes. Or as I'm learning to call them, opportunities for growth. All those opportunities to mature. It's going to happen in a relationship, just like in a family. Sometimes in a family, we get to have a lot of fun together. Sometimes in a family, we're really annoyed by one another and we don't understand each other and we got to work it through, but we're family. And so what I'm thinking when somebody comes down to Next Steps and wants to talk about a community group, I always start off in my head thinking, okay, I'm not selling them a condo. I'm not going to tell them how absolutely wonderful this is going to be and just show up and you're going to have your best ride or die friends immediately and you're going to want to go on vacation together and you're going to have inside jokes and it's going to be this wonderful thing. No, because I don't want to promise anything that I can't make good on. I don't know. You may go and it be horrible. You might think that was very awkward. I didn't know what to say the whole time. I was so ready to get out of there. I don't know. That may happen for you. But what I can tell you is you're going to have the opportunity to invest in intentional relationships. And that will never happen if you don't show up. And so I'm looking around this room as I'm talking, and I'm seeing so many faces that make community life happen at our church, because ultimately we could have people come down there every week, and if we don't have anywhere to send them, it wouldn't matter. If we were putting them on a waiting list, it wouldn't matter. But we don't, because we have you all. We have you all showing up on your usher team and making it a relational environment. We have you all opening your home or coming here a night of a group, and that when Anna contacts you and says, hey, we have another name, do you have room? Yes, we do. We have you all that are making that happen. You're making spaces for intentional relationships. And so I want to thank you for that. Before I turn it over to Anna to kind of talk about the other side of community, what's happening in our city, what's happening in intentional relationships in our world, I also wanted to just pull back the curtain and let you know about a couple things that happen here that you may not know about. And when it comes to community life, as Jason says, we want to be a place that is used in our community. We want our community to be a more hope-filled place because we are here. When Anna Marshall was still on staff, this has probably been a couple years ago now, she was on stage talking about some different resources that we want to be able to offer, and she said, hey, we've been able to offer this great resource for those who are grieving called Grief Share. And our facilitators getting ready to step out. In order for that to go on, we would need someone to volunteer and say, okay, I'll show up for that. And we had someone that did. Her name's Megan Wickland. Megan's been wonderful. She's been such a beautiful part. So the reason I pull back the curtain is Megan is someone that has been showing up multiple Tuesday nights that you may not be aware of. And 1 week we were doing a special event on grieving for the holidays and kind of how to get through the holiday season when you're grieving a loved one. And I had come to help her with that. And this girl who looked like she was about my age, I had not seen her here on a Sunday morning before, and so I just get to talking to her. And I said, well, hey, can I ask, how did you find out about us? Do you go to SCF? And she said, no, I don't, but my brother was killed in a car accident. And I was having a really hard time. So I started going to a counselor, and my counselor recommended that I look for grief resources, and your church popped up when I did a search. And yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And I share that story because I'm talking to a girl who lost her brother and reached out for help and found it at a church, not even necessarily knowing. I don't know that she included God in the search. I don't know that she included church. She was looking for help with grieving, and she found it in the church. And I see so much hope in that. And so I want you to know that there are things happening that are impacting the community. And actually, this last round of Grief Share, the majority of people don't go to SCF. There are people who do, and that's great, but the majority of people from the community who are looking for resources for grief and hope, and they found it here. And so I wanted to draw some attention to that as kind of a bridge to when it comes to community. And so, Anna, would you also share with us some other things happening in community life on that aspect of community people may not be aware of?
I love that we're a church that stayed right here in this neighborhood because our school partnerships have really amped up. We have 11 schools in our zip code. We have community groups that are connected to almost all of them. Staff appreciation happened at schools the first week in May. We did breakfast for all 11 schools. We delivered breakfast, and it was so fun and so cool to see groups involved. And schools are just, in our neighborhood, are just calling us for volunteers, calling us for tangible things, and we're able to meet those needs. And so that's been really exciting. They look forward every year to Serve Sunday, which will happen again on August 6th this year. We go in, no Sunday service in the building, Sunday service at the schoolyards. We just do whatever they need to do to spruce their schools up to get ready for the next school year. So that's coming up August 6th. You'll see some signups on the app coming up soon. We also have lots of local partners. We love to hear where they need volunteers. We love to connect with our local partners. We have a great food pantry that meets every Wednesday, serves over 100 people. They're taking a well-needed break in June to get some R&R, but they'll be back in July and in full force. I would encourage you, if you want to get involved in the community, I would love to have a conversation with you. But the other way is that we have a great podcast called Hope Nevada. The episodes are about a half hour long, and it just spotlights people in our community bringing hope. And so if there's something that you're passionate about, go on Hope Nevada, kind of look around and hear what the organizations in town are doing. The third thing is global partners. We've gotten to know the Ashleys a little bit better when they've been here stateside for a while, and so that's been really cool. And we have some partners in Costa Rica, the Orozcos, and so in October, first week in October, school break week, we'll send a team over to build a house. And so if you are interested in anything about Costa Rica or building a house or short-term missions, there'll be a information meeting on July 9th that you can come and get some more info.
Thank you, Anna. And Anna does such a fabulous job. I cannot state it enough of how well-resourced she is. So when she says, have a conversation with me, do it. Even if there's something your heart is particularly tender toward and you're thinking, I wonder if our community has any nonprofits that help with fill in the blank, she's going to have something to fill that blank in with. And so please talk to her. Please use that. She does such a great job at communicating all of that. The last thing I want to say is that this morning you heard, the past couple weeks you've been hearing about an event, as Nick said this morning for the ladies, the women's lunch, the women's lunch and launch, every time, the launch and launch, yes. Yes, but I want to just give a little bit of the origin story for that because it kind of paints a bigger picture. And you may think, okay, well, Whitney said Women's Connect. Sarah was doing connections. She's community life. Why are they talking about it? Because one of the things that I have learned this year is that sometimes we need a bridge into community, and that bridge can be connections. I had a friend talking to me one day, and she said, you know, I've wanted to join a community group. I hear you talk about it every single week, but it's an intimidating walk. It's intimidating to go down there, and I don't know if I'm ready to commit yet. And it is a commitment. I would not sell as community groups as anything less than that. This is a commitment, absolutely. But what we've learned is if we can build some bridges into community through connection, man, that really helps. How much more likely am I to try out a community group if I already know some names and faces there? If it's somebody that I've already laughed with, if it's somebody that I've already gotten to know a little bit, if it's somebody that I'm like, oh, if they're going to be there, it can't be that bad. So that's what we're hoping to do. And so with this event for Women's Connect, it really is a simple, we want women to meet other women in the church. We want to have some lunch while we do it. We want to have some mocktails there. And then while we're all gathered there together, just getting to know each other, there'll be some other opportunities to engage outside of it. And so, hey, if maybe you want to get together and hike with some women, here's where you can do that. If you want to do a book club, here's where you can do that. And the whole goal is not just to fill a social calendar, because honestly, that doesn't take a church to do that. You can get on a website, you can go to a meetup group, you can find that. But the whole goal, the why behind it is let's build connections into community. And I share that's on the women's side, but we also have that coming up for young adults. The men have been working on something like that. And so I wanted to kind of get behind and show you the scaffolding. Why are we doing these things? It's not purely social. There's an intentionality behind it. We want a chance to meet each other. This is the last thing I'll say about that. Just this morning, Susie Walker, probably a lot of you know and love Susie, she was telling me about somebody that she has worked with on and off for a long time, and then happened in conversation to find out that she goes to SCF. And she goes, how long have you been going here? Expecting the girl to say, I'm new. And she goes, oh, about 20 years. Their paths had never crossed. They were just in different sides. And so we want to build those connections. We want you to know the names and faces that you're eating tri-tip with, and that you're building bridges into community with. So that's a little bit behind that too.
All right. Any questions for Anna or for Whitney? You got to stay. You got to stay for a second. I'll hand you mine. Linda, go ahead.
How do you access the podcast?
Yeah, so go ahead, Whitney.
I would say wherever you normally listen to podcasts, but if you don't normally listen to podcasts and you want help, come find me. I'd be glad to help. But just search Hope Nevada. It has a brown background. I say that because sometimes our old blue one still pops up, but it has a brown background. But if you can't find it, we're down here every single week, or come talk to me, and I'd be glad to help you subscribe. It's also on the app.
You can also go straight through the app. So it is. There's a link on there for it. Yep. Anybody else for these guys? Wow. Those guys are quick back there. Guys, one of the things I love about what these ladies do, I've worked in a lot of churches. I've never worked in a church that gives as much to its community as this church does. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and he was talking about how messed up the schools were. I was like, when was the last time you were out of school? Well, I saw this thing. Don't ever come to me and say, I saw this thing. Because I ask better questions. And I said, because I go on school campuses like almost every day, and we actually have people on campuses in this zip code every week, and all the stuff you're narrative blasting is just not true. And even if it was, why wouldn't we want to counter that by being present? Not just complaining about a bunch of nonsense, right? And I love the fact that all 11 schools in this zip code, the first time they need something, we are always their first call, right? That's a beautiful thing to me. And I'm thankful for you guys who make that possible through volunteering. Man, that's an incredible thing. And so these guys both do incredible things. If you're not part of a serve team, if you're not part of a community group, it is daunting to do something for the first time. But how many things have we missed because we didn't do something for the first time? How much less is our life because we were afraid to do something for the first time, right? And so, man, before you get out of here tonight or this week, get up with one of these ladies and let them connect you to something that I promise you will be meaningful. All right? Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. All right, so now we are going to go to the submitted questions. There's only like 6 of them, so I love the fact that we asked people to send in things, and we got a couple of these. So Valerie said, I'm new at church, just interested in learning as much as possible, enjoying the community. Valerie, if you're here, we're glad you're here, right? I love that that's one of the inputs. Jenny said, hey, no questions. I'm just new to SCF. So, Jenny, we're glad you're here if you're here. If you're not, we hope to see you next time. So, a couple of questions that came up, and so I'll go through these, and then I'll take any that you may have as well. But we had a question that said, will the new revamped women's ministries, which is what Whitney was referring to, that launch event coming up, will it be serving those who are less accepted and overlooked within our own SCF church and communities? Our hope is so, right? At the end of the day, I'm a huge believer that people have to show up. We can't force anybody into anything, but we can try to be aware of situations where people may find it harder to take a first step, and to try to minimize the difficulty of that. We want to be aware of people who are suffering, people who maybe are walking through a harder season than others are at the moment. And because all of us are going to be in those seasons at some point, right? And so our hope is that everything we do is inclusive that way. I think I love what Whitney was talking about in terms of Jesus describing How will they know that you're my followers? By your love for one another. Not by how well you can quote your dogmatics. Not by what position you take on this and don't on this. But man, how do you love somebody? Right? And so I hope that everything we do is driven by love. Because I don't know about you, but like, because if I'm wrong about something, you know who I'll actually listen to? Well, here I listen to the elders because I have to, right? And they're great people, and I get to, I should say it that way. But you know who I generally listen to and value their voice? People I love. Right? Some random dude walks up to you on the street and is like, I don't like this about you. I don't care. I could care less. But when someone I love says something like that, hey, I think you're wrong here. I listen. That's why community matters. We need people we're connected to, right? Because those are where those bigger conversations can happen within the bounds of love. Otherwise, we're just shouting at passing cars, and that doesn't work, right? So I love that. All right. Let's see. State of the church's budget. Kayla and Mark asked that question. You saw it, I think, and we'll try to figure out that 3,000. Like, I don't know where that went, but yeah, we're doing well right now. And a big turnaround in the last 6 months, actually. Like, it really has stabilized a ton in the last 6 months, and I think a lot of that was actions that we undertook as a board, trying to exercise some wisdom there. But right now, we're doing well. I'm always going to encourage you. If you are part of SCF and you're not giving in some capacity, I always want to encourage you to think about that. Pray about it. I'll never manipulate that. I'll never try to like force people into anything. But I do think there is something about recognizing that everything that we own is not ours. I think it makes us less selfish in a way that is good for us. And so, you know, if I think that everything I have is God's, I hold it with a much looser hand than if I think it's mine. And so part of giving, I think, is about instilling that in our hearts and heads, is that it's not mine anyway, right? And so I want to have open hands with it. Kayla and Mark also asked, will the church continue to do more theology nights? We will. That's coming back in September. So first Sunday of September, we'll get back into theology for everyone. Will there be more theology services or programming in addition to theology nights? We actually have just contracted with a company called Theos U. That's THEOS U. And it's an online theology platform that basically you pay for it like you would Netflix. So it's like $14 a month. And they have about 90 different 8-week theology sessions guided by PhDs from all over the world, guys who are pastoring churches as well. And so we're actually kind of beta testing that with some of our small group leaders coming up to see whether we want to expand that, if there's a desire for it beyond that. So if you're not a group leader right now, right, we're not paying for you yet. But if you'd like or be interested in something like that, search Theos U. It's some really interesting stuff. They are basically bachelor's level theology courses that you can get for $15 a month. And I can tell you, as someone who's paid for a lot of theology courses, that's really inexpensive, right? And very, very good quality instructors, professors, teachers. And so, yeah, we hope to expand that, because at the end of the day, guys, my beliefs will not help you very much. My theology will not help you a ton, right? If your own is not well formed. So we want to equip you to be more and more like Jesus, to follow Jesus well. And that's not just a Sunday thing. That's an everyday thing. And so if we can equip to help you with that, we want to do that. And so those theology nights are one way we're doing that. But the other is to encourage you to some resources that we think may be beneficial for you. Pam asked, what would you say is SCF's biggest challenge or concern right now? I always think our biggest challenge is you have to say no to a lot of good things to say yes to the best things. And I'm always convinced that churches end up doing, do you guys remember when McDonald's tried to serve tacos? Right, it's been a while, but they tried. Like there were some markets where they're like, hey, we're going to get into the taco business. Don't do that. right? Whether you like McDonald's or not, they're known for a very small number of things and focusing on that. So I think always the challenge of any organizations, but especially at churches, is to stay focused on main things. And our main things is connecting people to each other so that they can follow Jesus well together. And so there are going to be a lot of events we don't do that other people do. And good for them. Man, they're following God in their own way. I believe that, right? But at the end of the day, we're not going to do anything that doesn't connect people to other people. We're just not going to do it. And so I always think that the biggest challenge for us is always not doing things just because people want them done, but doing them because they have intent that is beneficial for people. And that doesn't make everybody happy. I can tell you I've had those conversations, right? But we're going to do the things that we're meant to do. And we're going to be very laser focused about that. And I believe that's the way that God is leading us. That is the long game that we've been talking about just a little bit. Tammy said, how are we going to get more people in the door? That's easy. That's easy. You're going to invite them. Or they won't come. That's the way that works. Right? We're not going to send out flyers because I know the return rate on that, and it's about 0.03% for churches. We're not going to do billboards. We are investing in social media. We talked about that earlier. I think that is a way that we're trying to reach people. But I'm always a big believer that, man, if I go to a good restaurant and it's a good meal, you know how many people I tell about that restaurant? A lot of people. So at the end of the day, it really is about all of us going, hey, listen, if I find value in Jesus and what he's doing here at SCF, man, I want to invite people towards that, right? That's a meaningful thing. And so not to make light of the question, it's a good question, but I really do believe that. I believe that invite people, right? Don't just invite them, but come with them, right? That's a big thing. How many of you guys are here because somebody else invited you? A good majority. A very good majority. So it's always been the way it worked. And I think it's the best way for it to work, yeah? And so, yeah. Linda asked, does the church have staff that does laying on of hands, anointing with oil? Our elders are always willing to do that. And so if you ever have somebody, we're always glad to come and to lay hands on people and anoint with oil and pray. And so if you are ever desirous of that, or you're in need of that, or you want that, whatever, don't hesitate to call the church and let us know, or to see me, let me know, or to see Doug or any of the other elders and say, hey, listen, I'd like you guys to pray for me. We'd be glad to do that, always. So those are all the written questions I had, right? So if you have any other questions, I'm glad to try to answer them. I would ask, please, not big theological questions tonight. We will have time for those for sure. But if you have any other questions kind of about man, what's been happening or what's coming up, I'd love to address them if I can. Yep. Well, yeah, some of you might have gotten some weird emails from John or I a couple of weeks ago. Somehow somebody got in and did something with the email. So I don't know that we actually fixed anything because the same week, Walmart, who has much bigger IT security than we got the same thing. So here's the problem. There are a lot of Eastern Europeans with a lot of time on their hands, and they sit around and make money that way. And so I think we do as well as we can firewall-wise to make sure they're secure. Certainly there were no issues beyond email addresses. It wasn't like they got into our database and got anything financial or anything like that. But we're always striving to do our best on that. And yeah, having one in the last 6 years is pretty good, I think. And if you ever get an email from me that is like, hey, this is confidential, don't tell anybody, I promise you that's not from me. In fact, if you ever get an email that you didn't send me one and I'm sending it back from me, it's not from me, right? Because I'm not an email guy. I will text you or call you. I will not email you first, probably. So I don't think John will either. If you get an email from John saying, hey, I need some gift cards, please don't buy the gift cards. I think if we're going to make that ask, it's going to be bigger, to be honest with you. So, yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? Any questions? All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. I try to say this a lot, but I'll say it again tonight. It is my absolute privilege to do this with you guys. I love what I get to do here. I love you. I'm thankful for you. We're always available beyond even nights like this. If you ever have a question or a concern, please don't hesitate to come talk to me or any of the elders or John or anybody, whoever is appropriate in that we are here to serve you guys, right? And I want to be as visible as I can be. I want to be as accessible as I can be. I want to answer any questions that I can as quickly as I can. And so I'm thankful to be able to do this and to get to serve you guys. And when I say that I really believe the best days for us are ahead, I believe that. It's not just something I say to try to like rally you. I believe that in my heart. And so I'm thankful that we get to do it together. All right? I'm going to pray and we'll get out of here. I know we had some prayer prompts, but I don't want you guys here all night. So whether you want to be here all night or not, I don't want you here all night because we got to lock the doors at some point. So anyway, let's pray, man. Father, thank you again for this opportunity to gather together. We thank you for what you've done here at SCF amongst your people. We thank you for what you're doing right now, and we thank you for what you're going to do. Father, we wait expectantly, and we join with you expectantly of what you're going to do. And more than anything, we want the people of Northern Nevada to know that there is hope in you. We want them to see your goodness tangibly in your people. And Father, every opportunity we have to be part of that, we're grateful for. So Father, as we go about our week, this week is every week, may our words, may our actions glorify you. Father, may we bring hope where there's hopelessness. May we speak peace where there's division. And God, when it's all said and done, may our lives glorify you. Lord, it's in the powerful name of your Son, Jesus, I pray. Amen. Amen. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful week, everybody. We'll see you again soon.